Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Exploring 3D Experience Works. If you are a recurring visitor or you're joining us for the first time, my name is John Martirano, and joined with me is my co-host Gian Calisi, where we cover or explore 3D Experience Works live. So if you are new to this session, then chances are you have a question, and that simple question is, what is 3D Experience Works? So before we jump into that, I'm just going to hide my webcam real quick. All right. So what is this thing you're about to explore live with us? Well, we all know SOLIDWORKS and its best in-class 3D CAD software. And SOLIDWORKS has grown quite a bit over the past quarter century, and so much so that there is an entire suite of software extending the capabilities of SOLIDWORKS through simulation, visualize, composer, so on. And as SOLIDWORKS grows and expands into the cloud sector, we can now connect SOLIDWORKS to the 3D Experience platform on the cloud. And we have a new rapidly growing portfolio of fully cloud-based design apps as well, which those are super awesome. So all of this is still within the SOLIDWORKS brand, but remember that we are just one of many brands that are a part of the Dassault Systems family. And all of these other brands, they provide a unique solution to different industries and the different phases of business. They all connect to the 3D Experience platform on the cloud, which is the big blue compass that you see in the middle there. So from these other brands, SOLIDWORKS hand-picked tools and products. And the idea behind this was to create a portfolio that provides a top-to-bottom solution for the product development process. So this is 3D Experience Works. So what does that product development process look like? Well, up here on screen, in its simplest form, you see it's planning, developing, and releasing a product. Now, we all know how well SOLIDWORKS tackles that second step by developing and iterating on your design. But as you see here, the other apps come together to fill in the gaps to provide a one-stop shop of connected solutions. So today we'll be focusing on the SOLIDWORKS brand with the emphasis on the release phase, actually. Because as we prepare to go to market, we need nice, stunning promotional imagery, and we can create this imagery from our virtual designs made in SOLIDWORKS. So Mike Sande's here to join us. He's a very talented technical expert that we have on the show with us, and he's going to show us how to use Visualize Connected. So this is the same as normal SOLIDWORKS Visualize, but connected to 3D Experience. So without further ado, let me introduce Mike Sande.
Well, thank you very much, John. That was an awesome introduction. Yeah, we're hitting on Visualize Connected. This is a new offering that we saw this year with the SOLIDWORKS Connected, 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS Connected application. It's actually, if you're familiar with Visualize, it's actually Visualize Professional, but connected to the 3D Experience, and we'll walk through the process of that. So my demo for today, I wanted to go through and actually hit on a few key things here. We're gonna go and grab Gian's earbud case. If you watch the previous webinars these guys have been at, you've seen some of this come together where he's used a few of the X-Shape, X-Design apps on 3D Experience. He's used SOLIDWORKS Connected to create the case. Now it's time to get this thing to market. So I'm going to walk through and see what it looks like to grab data, collaborate with data on 3D Experience, use it in Visualize Connected to get photorealistic product rendering ready. We're going to configure it. It's a really important part of this process to be able to create different textures and looks and feels of that. Maybe it's for sales and marketing decisions and so on. And then finally, I'm going to finish up with an animation. So we got some fun stuff for you guys. I'm really excited to dive into Visualize. Now, I'm curious though on this model. So Gian, can you go back and just hit a little bit on how this thing actually came about? It's such a cool data set.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, let's talk. Let's do a quick design recap. So what I used to make this, I used a combination of 3D Experience SOLIDWORKS, that same SOLIDWORKS desktop that you know and love, but connected to the 3D Experience platform. I used that in conjunction with 3D Creator and 3D Sculptor, two of our fully cloud-based CAD applications on the platform. So I use 3D Creator and 3D Sculptor to create the earbuds themselves, and then I used those earbuds as a reference in 3D Experience SolidWorks to create the case around them. So I'm gonna start with the earbud itself and actually making the stem, I'll call it, of the earbud, that kind of elongated portion. So I'm actually gonna start by making a loft. So using some of our basic sketch commands here. And we have our 3 profiles to build our loft, and we're just gonna grab those to put them in our dialog box. Now I just used a series of new planes and convert and offset entities to make that. Now another sketch that I'm just gonna cut away the outside. Now we're going pretty quick here. We just wanted to do a recap of what the design was really like, what it entailed. So for this design, I actually used XDesign for parametric modeling. So I used some parametric features that you just saw to create the stem. And then I used X-Shape, our subdivision modeling tool, to create the bulb, I guess you could call it, or really the part of the earbud that needs to be really a very nice and organic surface that will fit into the earbud very comfortably. Like Mike said, we covered a lot more of that design process in a previous webinar, but just showing you the basics right now. So we start with primitive shapes and X-Shape. In this case, I start with the box. And it's just inherently different than your typical parametric modeling, because now we're starting with 3D, and then we're just pushing and pulling place different, vertices, faces, and edges until we get the shape that we're looking for, using that triad, or the robot, as we call it. So we can adjust faces, edges, or points using that robot, and the robot we use to scale with those dots, and then we use it to translate and rotate using the arrows and the arcs right there that you can see. We can even adjust the orientation of that robot tool itself. You can grab the entire body. I'm just box selecting, window selecting here, and just pushing and pulling little bits at a time. But that just about covers the X-Shape use in this. So when we're ready to switch over back to XDesign, now we're just combining these 2 bodies. So a simple combine, just like in Desktop SolidWorks. Now I have one body and just gonna soften up that edge between them with a fillet. And that's really a high level overview of how we got this case to where it is. And now this isn't every single feature. We did add a couple more basic features that you'll see Mike in the model Mike uses, but this is where I pivoted to start on the case. So I actually used the earbud itself to design the case by bringing it into 3D Experience SolidWorks, and then using it as a reference when I wanted to create that the insert for the case. So the part of the case that the earbuds actually sit inside, nice and comfortably. We did that by bringing it in, and now just cutting using the surfaces of the earbud itself to drive our different features. And then in the case where we have kind of the top part, this top cut done, now we need to actually continue and cut down all the way to that bulb. But we don't need to cut the whole thing, so we're just going to create surfaces. We're going to use an offset surface on the earbud itself to define where our cut is going to go up to, our next cut, to create this, to create the insert that the earbud is going to sit in. So just manipulating this surface to get it to the point I need it to be. I want it to at least encompass the size, the size of the top part of that earbud that we see selected right now in our selected contours for this cut. But now once I'm ready to use this surface, now I have my cuts in there, and now I'm just softening up edges and adding final features. That's just highlighting how we were able to use multiple different CAD tools, in conjunction, in tandem, to come up with this final design that uses multiple different CAD products. And then, we shell it out, we mirror it, and now we're well on our way to that case insert part that we're looking at, where the earbuds are going to sit. So the rest of this doesn't get much more exciting. This is my favorite part of the model itself, of making this model, was making that insert. So let's fast forward to our case is done. We have the top and bottom pieces as well. Those are pretty simple. If you're a SolidWorks user, sure, that you can imagine just how easy it was to make those. But I think that now I'm done with this case. So I'm ready to reach back out to my design team with Mike and John here, because we need some renders now. We need to put some content out there, some nice, cool imagery to generate some hype, generate some buzz around this around this new set of earbuds we're hitting with the market. So I know John has color swatches, and I know Mike, he's the visualize expert here. So I'm going to see if he can handle that. So it looks like John, there's the first color swatch from him. We can see this in our collaborative community that we're interacting here. Looks like Mike's up for the challenge too. And now he has access to all the color swatches and really everything he needs to get going on these renders. So Mike, how are you feeling? You think you got everything you need? Oh, Mike, I think you might be muted.
There we go. I was just commenting, it's really fun to watch how that model came about, to see, X Design, X Shape, which are part of those 3D Creator, 3D Sculptor roles, all through desktop, through the cloud application, so browser based, but yet bringing it back down, right? It's connected to the desktop ecosystem. And really that's what I wanted to hit on right where you left off with your design and getting into the visualize connected side of things. So as you mentioned, you guys using the swim community that was created for this group, you tasked me with this. I was able to log in right away, get flagged saying, hey, I got some work to do. And of course, I'm excited to do it. So using SOLIDWORKS Visualize Connected, I actually launched that application right from the same place we launch all of these different applications. Some are browser-based, and in this case, it's a desktop install, but connected to all the data that we have on the 3D experience. So you notice, go ahead and clicking here, and this actually will launch the desktop tool, just like our old Visualize Professional, but I get this enriched CAD environment or data environment where I have the task pane flyout. So right away, what I can do is start searching for data. I can start searching for your CAD data, that's been through all of this different cool workflows, find that earbud case. I can see, where it's at, who owns it, what revs are here. And I can also look at other non-CAD data too. So we'll get more into that later on, but all of this enriched environment right into this version of Visualize Connected. So to bring in to the model to start working on this, simply just drag it and drop it. And then I'm prompted right away, how do we want to import the model? And this is really letting Visualize do a lot of the work up front on processing going from engineering design to more of this photorealistic rendering. And I use the automatic import profile. Other things are going to come across. So Gian, if you went through and applied materials inside of SOLIDWORKS, I'm going to get those. Any decals you might have done, scenes, cameras, all of that is going to be carried across into Visualize. So it really can save a lot of work for the guru who's doing the CAD stuff and rendering stuff. We can speed things up. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it in, and just like that, this looks good. Looks like the right model. That's great. The next thing I want to point out is over on the 3D Experience side, you'll notice that the Visualize project is made, and it's created a reference to the CAD data itself. What's so nice about this is that, Gian, it says it's still in work here. So maybe we're really close to that release stage, but we're still not 100%. As you start to go through and modify the geometry, I would get notified as a Visualize user. I would see those updates. I could update my project and bring in any of the geometry changes. So active reference right there. I'm gonna go ahead and save this. All the saving, once we've done this, I'm gonna fill out the save card. We'll add a new comment into this revision. In this case, just new project. And then we're gonna put this project right up onto the cloud. So as we go through, even though I'm working on Visualize as local to my machine, all that data is being pushed back up to the cloud, being backed up, safe, secure, and a collaborative. We can share this with other users. Now, one more step here, just to make sure that John or Gian or anyone else doesn't get excited and jumps into my project, I'm going to reserve it. That just locks it, gives me only access to write. And this is very same interface, the same interface you would see with the SOLIDWORKS connected data set as well. So now I'm inside of Visualize. I'm going to go through, I want to point out a few things I use commonly. So if you're new to Visualize Professional or Visualize in general, so on the very top, we've got our toolbar. And this is really the guts of the software itself. So I'm going to do things like be able to grab models or parts, different groupings, depending on how it's structured, or even the appearances just by my selection tool. In this case, we want to grab the lid. I want to make sure that's open. I don't have to worry about constraints of mates or understanding the mates that were in there. So a lot of folks that use this type of software may not have a CAD background. So things like just manipulating, just grab and move it. So the other area of the software I use quite a bit is just the manipulator. This is things like translations and rotations, scaling. In this case, we want to open the lid up. Now I've noticed that the the spot where it thinks the middle is a little off, no big deal. We can actually reposition the pivot point. And that's what I'm going to do here is just say, let's line that up right with where that hinge is, just like that. And we can actually see the line or the hinge or the cutout, and we'll just open it up. So just rotating the case open. This looks pretty good. All right, so I've got that opened up. Now, next thing I want to do is just process some of the other CAD data. I showed you guys the top toolbar. Over on the right-hand side, I'm working on the models tab, and I do a left to right approach. So I start with the model, and I start to see things like, Gian, you did a great job on hitting a lot of these transitions, these fillets or rounds to smooth out the model, but there's a few that we still missed. And this is really critical within rendering because the brain, the human brain, if you see something in the real world that doesn't quite fit, we all say, well, it's a glitch in the matrix, right? It's your brain saying that's not right. And perfectly sharp edges like this are one of those triggers. So I like to soften those up. And I love this in Visualize. I don't need to go bug Gian to say, hey, can you add a fillet there? That's affecting the production model. No, what we're gonna do is just round that out and do that right inside of the rendering software. One-way bridge, we don't have to worry about affecting the CAD data. We can do that here. But before we do so, I just wanna show you on the right-hand side, there's other ways you can modify the model. So things like changing the opacity, we can have that kind of ghosted out, really cool effect if you wanna do some like transparency views and look inside of complex components. Standard transformations, so just things like rotating the model around, translating it, these are all built right into a quick UI. But in this case, going back to that sharp edge, Visualize Connected allows this corner radius, and this is a great tool. So I can actually, it's a real subtle break that I put to that edge, but it just softens it up. And I'll do that on a couple of the components. Here, we'll just go ahead and do another break to the overall inside of the case. And then finally, we'll just make sure we're softening up the earbud itself. So again, modify geometry inside of Visualize, and don't have to worry about bugging Gian or the model or any of that. Next thing we'll look at is on the appearances side of things. I actually have imported all of the appearances that were created when the model was done over in SolidWorks. We've got some mold tech finishes here. So that's a good starting place. And you can either use these as is, maybe they're 100% approved materials, or you can modify them on the fly. So we'll do a nice little SolidWorks red to the case cover here. That's a good starting place. The other area you can use is in the material libraries, the default installation. It comes with a ton of different materials that you can add to these, you can customize them, or you can use as is. In my plastics folder, we see we've got a bunch right here. I don't know, 50, 60 some materials in there. Application of these is just a simple drag and drop. Now, these plastics will actually have the color, they have a highlight color, they can have transparency to them. So they're pretty advanced materials, and they're specific to rendering. How light moves through them, how it bounces off of them, and so on. So I'm gonna apply this new red paint. That looks pretty good. Let's go back, let's apply a few more. I'm gonna give the actual headphone itself, the earbud, a real nice white paint to it. And then I'm just gonna repurpose that. We'll copy that from one and we'll paste that onto the other, apply that appearance onto another one. And what Visualize does here, it actually will group those appearances together. And this is pretty slick. So once we have those appearances applied, it could be on 2, 4, however many parts of the model, I can always come back and just modify the color or the clear coat roughness or the clear coat thickness or any of those aesthetics, and on the fly, sorry, I'm getting a bug here. Get that all set up, and pretty quick, we're pretty much right around our way. All right, the last place I want to go through in the setup process is adding some branding. Now, again, I mentioned that if this was done in the CAD stage, so Gian, if you would have not been so lazy and added the decal, we would have brought that right in. Just kidding.
My bad.
We can do it here as well. So I can go through right inside of Visualize. We can add decals, and decals can be static images. They can actually be animations. So you could put an image up on like a cell phone working or so on. But we'll slap on just a little PNG, drag and drop, place this in the position, and we'll move that triad to get it positioned right where we want it to be. All right, so let's scale this down a little bit. Again, just nice user interface. And I didn't point this out, but You'll notice that it's kind of pixelating as I modify it. This is because we're actually rendering in real time. So as I make changes to it, as I make adjustments to the model, Visualize is giving me a direct feedback of what's going on. Okay, let's go back over to the right-hand side, and you'll notice I've just moved myself left to right. I started with the model, modified some things, we opened it up, softened the edges, we applied some appearances. Next, we want to modify the scene, and this is really that virtual photo studio that we're working in. The scene that we have here was brought across from Visualize. If you're a CAD user out there, you may recognize the scene. Oh yeah, that's how I design in CAD. Great, that comes across as well, and it's a good starting place. You can also modify these. So what I'll start to do is come through and take out that backplate, which is just a standard image in the background. We can modify the things like the brightness to this. You can rotate the scenes. These scenes that I talk about, or environments, have lights in them, and we can reposition the location of those lights just by rotating around and really try to light up that model, right up our product that we're going to be creating a rendering of. I like to go through, especially in product photography, is get rid of that 3D type effect and get just a solid color in the background. But you'll notice like shadowing, and I'll get into some floor reflections are all applied. Visualize Connected out of the box installation comes with a bunch of different environments or scenes as well. So here, just looking at this, we could do like a blurred studio, which gives a nice soft effect, drag and drop. I should mention these types of scenes readily available online. There's tons of websites you can download for free or pay for these types of scenes. You can also create your own. I think the iPhone now and some Android apps allow you to capture those. So drag and drop, bring in your own custom scenes. You know, this could be your own showroom, this could be your shop floor or a retail environment, whatever it might be. Now I'm going to go back and on that scenes tab, you'll notice as I apply them, those scenes all get remembered, they get added to the project. But I'm going to use this final one. I like that high contrast. We'll rotate that into position, and again, we'll use that dark background to really make this pop. I'll add a little floor reflection. So just going through some of the options inside of here. If you don't know what they are, no big deal. Just slide things around. You're going to get the feedback from the real-time rendering and see how that affects your overall image. Now, the scenes though aren't always going to be the perfect lighting, and as any photographer tells you, it's all about good lighting. So one thing I love about Visualize Connected is you can create all these additional lights to your scenes, and it's really easy to do. In this case, I want to add a little bit of a light to that back case, almost where the branding is. But instead of manipulating and moving it, all I'm going to do is say, hey, pick target and click on the face I want to light up. So as I select that, it puts a light out in space somewhere, boom, and it fires it in, lights that up face, just normal too, gives this really nice effect. You can modify the size and the style of lighting, the overall geometry. I like to use a long cylinder light. I think it gives a nice effect to it. That's just me playing around. Looks good, I love it. And pretty quick, we're ready to go. So I grabbed Jian's model through 3DEXPERIENCE, brought it in, modified some of the geometry, I added some appearances, created a light, applied a scene, and we did that all pretty quick. This is as real time as it gets. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this. I want to make sure we got a good saving point. And you'll notice that I also have the release reservation after save option. Maybe I'm done for the day, headed out. We want someone else to have access. We can do that, which I do here. Again, this is going to take and save that data up to the cloud. The left-hand side screen gives me feedback, make sure I'm still working on the current version or revision of that earbud case. See, that's good to go. But in this case, I'm going to keep working, right? So I've got this set up. Now I want to create some configurations, product configurations. For the CAD users out there, it's a little different to visualize. Think of them as like display states. Now, what's really important for me here is to do a lot of if-then scenarios. And in this case, John, you provided me all the swatches I need, which is great. But maybe early in the design phase, or if you're communicating with your customers on the look and feel, and this could be more than just colors. This could also be textures. This could be transparencies. This could be decal placements. All of those things can be done with these if-then configurations. So let's create a few. I'm going to do a gray one, and then I'm just going to do a blue one as well. So we're just giving those a name. I use the GRAY spelling. Sometimes I use EY spelling. I have no rhyme or reason. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and change this to gray and start off in my material library, same place we were earlier. Now I see a dotted one, but this is black. No big deal. You can, again, you can use the library as a starting point, bring it in, and check this out. I love this look because it's actually got like a 3D texture to it. Visualize fully supports like displacement mapping, even what we call PBR textures, are really advanced materials. We can do those in here, use them as a starting point and modify that. I think this looks good, but it was outside of the scope of the work. So let's continue shopping for materials. That's what you're doing. You're just applying it. Does it look good? Do I like it? Drag and drop, finding something you like. So this volcano gray, I think, is a good fit. And again, that's going to be the color, but also the roughness of the model, the reflectivity of the model. All of those go into that appearance. Now, in this case, let's go back over and we'll apply a little bit of a cotton to this, and then we'll jump up and switch over to my configuration. It looks like I lost a shadow box there. No big deal. Apologize for that. Now, what I want to do, though, is we all know how important branding is in terms of colors. If you have ever worked with anyone in marketing, they are very particular in making sure that RGB, that hex value, the CMYK value, Pantone, for any of those things, those numbers have to be precise. So what I'll do is actually search in 3DEXPERIENCE, that task pane, bring this out, and we'll look for that posting information that John had posted earlier. You saw the full SolidWorks, the Dassault Systems brand colors. So I've got 2 of the swatches. We'll go into the branding colors. I'm going to preview this. So again, non-CAD data is searchable, accessible right through the same pane. And I could grab the values, the CMYK values right from here. Or one of my favorite features inside of here is just using the little color dropper. We'll just extract that right from there. It saves me time, and I get that exact value. So we'll go ahead and maybe grab the blue. Let's see what the black. Well, we wanted that gray, which is a little lighter than the volcano gray we had before. Let's toggle through. I've got 3 configurations created now, or sorry, 2 configurations. We want to do 1 more. We'll just repeat the process. I'll bring in a blue. I could bring in any one of these, it doesn't matter, but I like that shininess of the blue. We'll extract out the right value of that blue. And now we can toggle through and see I've got all my configurations, and rinse and repeat. 5, 10, 100 of these, all stored in that project. Now going through, I did notice here that it has a little reflection inside of the model. I don't love it. So what I'll do is actually modify that just a little bit. Again, real-time rendering, just change the roughness. Think of this as going to it with like a 500 or 800 grit sandpaper just to soften that up a little bit. You know, going up to 1,000, we could polish it and so on. That looks right. Okay, so we moved through models, appearances, the scenes. Now let's look at cameras. This is really where you bring that artistic fun of it. You can really start to be creative. And if you're not creative, a lot of folks out there who do this stuff, I'm just not a creative person. No big deal, because you can take real-time rendering, move things around. What looks good, what doesn't? So here, when we come in, we'll get our top view, and I'm just gonna start creating a bunch of cameras. I like that one. I've created a wide angle lens, a 35 millimeter, just put that right in there. Again, slider bars another way. Start moving around the CAD model. What looks good? In this case, let's go ahead and get a nice render shot of some branding. Things like depth of field are included with Visualize Connected. This will blur the fore and aft ground and really focus your end viewer's eye right where you want them to. So I'll click on that focus point, puts that right into a sharp focus, and we're looking pretty good. So I'm going to switch back over to my session, and let's go ahead and make a save. I think this looks pretty far along. We've got a bunch of cameras. I've got 3 configuration options. I could have kept going and included all of the branding ones as needed. And we'll add a revision comment to this one. And what I'm doing on this project is I'm creating revisions of it. And this gives me a space I can always roll back to if I need to maybe be able to branch off into a new direction. It's just the way that I'm managing my project. All right, let's go into create a new camera. So I'm going to do another camera here. I've got 4 cameras now. In this case, we want to bring the earbud out. We talked about the manipulation tool earlier, right-click menu as well. All of these commands are really easy to find, even if you're brand new to Visualize. So we'll bring this up. Let's rotate that in a little bit. And what I want to do is actually give, a little shout out to the awesome design of the earbud itself. So far, it's just been what they look like in the case. So that looks pretty good. And we'll just kind of tweak that. A lot of fine tuning as you can tell. And then we'll go through and let's add a little depth of field. Again, blurs everything out. Let's sharpen right on the earbud. Now, when I was doing this, I noticed it seemed a little dull to me. And I thought, well, it would be great to give Gian feedback and say, can we do like an LED? So maybe in the actual design process, if this was a real production model, be a perfect time, crack open Visualize, let's do some if-then statements on that visual simulation. What would it look like to actually render out some lighting in there? And that's what I want to get to here. Looks good with the blue, but instead of bugging Gian and asking him to send me a new model with some geometry inside, Visualize Connected actually allows users to create these primitive shapes, and there's a whole library of them. In this case, I'm just going to do a circle primitive. We'll slap that in, brings in a real big one. No big deal. We'll select that primitive, and then we'll go through and actually scale that down, do about 1% of that size. Good guess. Let's go ahead and translate this, move that into position. And again, just sliders, no mates, no constraints with that stuff. I can just push and pull as needed, kind of like we do with the X shape, just to get it in the right spot. And now I'm going to apply an appearance to that. We'll use the emissives folder. Here's where we have all of our lights. I've got a nice 8,000 Kelvin xenon light in there. We'll just drag and drop that right onto that primitive model, and then do things like modify the color. Now, everything we've done at this point has been exterior lighting, shining in. It's calculating how it's reflecting off those materials and coming back to our eye. Now we've introduced an actual light source inside of the CAD model, and it uses an actual physical rendering engine that calculates how that light moves through. So we'll change things like the brightness. We'll go ahead and modify the location and color. And then finally, Visualize Connected allows for bloom. And this just gives that kind of halo effect that you see with lighting. You know, if you have more of a humid area, you're going to get that overall look and feel to it. Really, really kind of puts that professional touch onto lights. So we've applied a piece of geometry. Again, we're not pushing back. Maybe this again is going to be into that design phase of things, the design review phase. We're throwing out ideas, or maybe we're working on our vendor hasn't sent us the new PCB that goes inside of here. We can still create some of that geometry right in Visualize. Now it's time to render. I'm going to create some static images. We have standard image formats are supported. PSD files are supported. I usually work with just a PNG file. We support alpha channels, which is just giving transparency to the background. This is if you're going to do any post-processing, and in this case, I'll bring them into PowerPoint to create kind of a layout. And then Visualize lets me stack up all my configurations and all my cameras. I can say, hey, grab all the cameras I created, in this case 4. It could be 40, who knows? And it'll put those all ready for me in a nice queue. And that's what I'll do is I'll queue these up. I want to keep working, keep adding stuff to the queue. Then when I go to lunch, we'll hit the go button on that queue, and we can start rendering stuff out when we're having a sandwich. So let's go ahead and minimize that. Let's come back over. Let's make sure we're doing our due diligence on saving this model up to the cloud. Again, I like to rev this. We'll put this in a new revision, no big deal, and make sure we're still working on it as we reserve it. Now I want to go ahead and share this over on that swim community so I can access all of the apps and widgets and roles that we've seen in past webinars right from here. So if I enable the compass, I'll bring that open, and then I'm actually going to go back over to swim, back over our team community, and we'll make a post here with these images. So just added, hey guys, check these out, uploaded that into here. We'll go ahead and save this, and pretty quick, accessing the data, applying some materials, creating some cameras, moving some stuff around, running these all out. We got a really cool proposal. Again, this could be customer facing, this could be marketing content for the web, digital catalog, social for Instagram, Facebook. Those are always hard to feed. Or this could be earlier on the design review. Which direction do we want to go with the stylings? Do we like the looks of the earbud? Gian, I love it. I think it looks great.
Thanks, Mike.
Let's go one more step. I wanted to go extra credit. That was the task that John and Gian threw at me, but I wanted to see if we could create an animation as well and actually put it up on the SOLIDWORKS Instagram account. So if you guys want to get ahead of me, and if you're not following SOLIDWORKS on Instagram, jump on there. We posted this animation, but I'll show you how I made it because this is a really easy process. All the work is done. Everything up to this point, appearances, positioning, all of that we've done. Now it's just open the timeline up. Again, this is Viz Connected, comes with animation capabilities. I'm going to say, let's go about a 9-10 second animation timeline. And I'll move my second, the little red bar, or sorry, the yellow bar at the bottom to where I want to start creating keyframes. Keyframes, very standard way to create animations. Add animation, I just clicked on the earbud and said, add animation or add keyframe, or the hotkey K, simple enough, K for keyframe. We'll plop that right down to the bottom, and you can actually see that come up. as we go through. So it puts it into position right at 7 seconds. And what I'm doing is I'm going backwards. This is where I want my animation to finish. So case open, earbud out. We'll do the same process. Let's move that. We'll do a keyframe for the actual case back. And then what I'm going to do is come into the geometry side on the right and just reset it. So Visualize remembers where the position was when it was imported. This makes it really easy for me to roll back and just say reset, go back to your home. Creates the keyframe of that position, and then we can start to slide through and see how it looks. Now, I don't love that it's kind of coming forward on the case, so I just updated the keyframe, and it does that automatically. I just move that back into position, toggle that through. Again, we're rendering in real time, and we can see this thing come together. Now, the last thing I want to do, and I could keyframe that LED, that fake LED to come with it, but instead I said, why don't we just turn it on? We can keyframe all sorts of properties. You can keyframe camera properties. You can keyframe appearances. So you can change this red to blue to green and so on. In this case, I wanted to go ahead and just keyframe out the opacity. So it looks like it's boom, turning on as we bring it out. So just do 0 opacity, and then fraction of a second later, let's ramp that up to 100. Now it's up there, it's just hidden. And as that comes into position, we'll turn on that LED. From there, I'll just add last little thing. Here's a little pro tip, motion ease. So this kind of accelerates and decelerates the motion as it comes in. You can apply more of those advanced animation tips to each of the keyframes, really common in animation tools. I like to always add that, makes it less jerky. And we'll go through and we'll start to keyframe the camera itself. So I'm gonna add a little bit of a twist to the initial part. Same thing, K for keyframe on the camera, or you can right click and grab keyframe. I'll go through, and that brings a new item into the timeline. We'll roll to the very end. Let's get rid of that twist. Just using my mouse, positioning where I want that final image to be, that holding place, and just like that, the animation's done. So like I said, you've done the work to create the static images, going a little bit extra step there, creating the animations. We'll add these to the queue. This one took a little longer. I think it ran overnight. I don't know, it was Friday night when I finished up at 5 o'clock. Put this in the queue. Saturday morning, it was done. So I finished up at some point. Visualize does run on full CPU, GPU rendering engines to it. It has AI denoiser. All of these things can make it extremely fast. Animation like this, you could probably get done less than an hour on a standard graphics cards using the denoiser. Probably less than a half hour. So jump back to the community, guys. I got extra credit for you. I did your swatches, but I also created this cool animation. I hope you dig it. Let's take a look. If you guys want to see it in real time, again, jump back over onto that Instagram post. We've got it right up top here. I don't know if you can see my phone right there. Check it out. See, we even use our own renderings in our own marketing, because why not? It's awesome. Differentiators, right? What do you think, guys? What do you think? You happy with
Incredible.
it? Did I do a good job?
Above and beyond. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for coming in. That was a super engaging presentation. I mean, I learned a lot.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, just like to recap for the audience, I mean, photorealistic rendering, honestly, it was just so much easier than I thought it was. I just thought it was so much harder than that, product configurations, and, we threw in some collaboration in there as well. And of course, the icing on the cake was where Mike went the extra mile there and created that stunning animation using keyframes. So all pretty easy to use from what from what I thought too.
Totally.
Yeah. So Gian, do you want to just give us a quick design recap here?
Yeah, sure. So just reiterating from the beginning that this design, we used a combination of 3DEXPERIENCE SOLIDWORKS in conjunction with 3D Creator and 3D Sculptor. And we were actually able to reference geometry from either CAD app in the other to actually, we created the earbud in the cloud completely. And then we used it as a reference in 3DEXPERIENCE SOLIDWORKS to build the case around it.
Excellent. And you can learn more, of course, by visiting solidworks.com/3DEXPERIENCE Works. And this concludes Exploring 3DEXPERIENCE Works Live for all of the 2020 sessions. So for those of you who have come to multiple sessions, thank you so much for your engagement. We really appreciate that you've come time and time again. We will see you all in 2021. Have a great rest of your day.